Hi, folks. Welcome to another episode of Film Study. This is Ken McCusick, and it's time for this week's episode of One Last Thing, where I'm joined by co-host Sean Asher. Sean, how you doing?
I'm doing good, Ken. I am excited for a new week of football.
Yeah, a new week of football is a good way to put it. Uh, Unexpected celebration coming this week. I mean, we knew that this is the 30th season of Ravens football. I guess we didn't know that they'd be planning a big thing for week one and that they'd be doing it against the Cleveland Browns, which is I think, kind of an unfortunate coincidence, we'll call it.
Yeah, you have to speculate. Was this coincidence? I'm sure there's reasons for everything, and maybe some of it was intentional, maybe some of it wasn't. Maybe it was an oversight.
Right. So anyway, what we're getting at here, obviously, is the Cleveland Browns lost their team 30 years ago, and obviously they were bitter about it. This is a fairly sharp stick in the eye for a Cleveland fan to have this kind of a celebration going on during a game here. I would think that the Ravens certainly did not want this. I can't imagine there's any Cleveland front office person or fan who would have wanted it. The players probably don't really care because basically none of them were alive then. Now, you mentioned being 5. You'd probably be older than any Browns player, I'm guessing, was at that time.
Joe Flacco may have me beat. Maybe
Oh, you're right.
he may have me beat. I don't know. I don't know how old he is, but yeah, he's got more gray in his beard than I do for sure. Yeah.
All right. So, if you're looking through this, the Ravens, I don't think wanted it. I think that Sashi Brown, who's worked for both organizations, would have said, this really isn't a good idea. He probably did. He may have even said something in advance because they've been certainly planning this event for a lot longer than since the schedule was made.
Yeah, and I'm really hoping that Ravens fans, especially at the game, listening, whether you're on their TV, I'm really hoping that there's compassion involved here. I wasn't around when Colts left, but my grandfather was, and he was heartbroken. And just remember that, like, Cleveland went through the same thing, and I'm happy to beat up on Cleveland, and I love our record against the Cleveland Browns, but have a little bit of compassion for, like you said, the poke, the stick in the eye that this kind of is.
Yeah, it's something. The NFL is the only organization that I can think of might have wanted it, and I look at that. It's the NFL might have leaned into this. They might have decided, hey, not only do we want the rivalry, any kind of hatred is good for the game, and it's a positive thing. And if we can have that be a focus of the game, then that's fine. Anybody who's tuning in and just watching the game is probably going to root for Cleveland for that reason, or maybe just because Cleveland's an underdog period in the game. But I think the NFL is the group that probably leaned into it. And even if the Ravens had gone back and said, hey, look, this shouldn't be done. And I'm sure the Browns probably did and say, look, you really want us going to Baltimore for the first game of the year? I think that the NFL probably said, we're not changing it, even if they could.
Yeah. I think probably the only good piece of this, or the logical piece or selling piece, is that Joe Flacco's coming back for,
Mm-hmm.
his first, is this his first game back in Baltimore since
Yep.
leaving? But that's not enough of a reason to be doing this, and one of the things really, this really could be a safety thing. Like, we've seen fans in Baltimore and in other cities that can be obnoxious and cause chaos and fights, and just be careful this week if you're going to the game. You really don't need to be adding extra dirt into the wound of Browns fans, specifically this week.
Yeah, I agree entirely. Um, there's some similarities to this game to the very first game in Baltimore. By the way, I'm going to remind some Ravens fans about how crappy it felt even then, even getting football back. But a few things happened. Bob Trumpy was the color commentator for the first game, and he'd of course made comments about Well, he made various comments about how it was inappropriate. I think actually Tagliabue is the one who said that they needed to get a museum. Baltimore needed to get a museum instead, which is the ultimate middle fingering for a city that worked very hard to go after an expansion team. But NBC may have put Bob Trumpy in there because of it. They may have done it at request of the NFL. I'm not sure, but there's no reason for Bob Trumpy to be doing that game. And Bob Trumpy, if you'd been around for Colts football in the 1980s, is one of the worst announcers in the entire league. And we would often get Bob Trumpy as the color commentator for the Colts game because the Colts game was the worst game on the entire docket. And you're definitely not getting the top guy. They handed out "Dump Trumpy" signs at the entrance to the ballpark that day. Uh, he should not have addressed the thing on air, but he did, and then he said some more stupid crap. And if you have a recording of that game, you can take a listen to it and talk about how Trumpy says, "Well, this isn't about me. This is about the city of Baltimore. They want to make it about me." Well, no, they didn't make it about you. They made it about hating you. That's a very different thing. And Bob Costas made some remarks. I think he still is vilified in Baltimore to this day over some of the remarks that he made before the game and how Baltimore shouldn't have gotten a team and the team should have never moved and this and that. What Baltimore went through during the expansion process, if you didn't live through it, you really can't understand just how ridiculous it was. The way they were used like bait, basically, by 30 NFL cities, or actually probably a couple less than that at that time, that were trying to get stadium funding done publicly. Baltimore had a public stadium deal that they had on the table. Said, "Hey, if you come to Baltimore, you've got this," and that, of course, eventually became M&T Bank. But it was a situation where all of the owners basically refused Baltimore the team during expansion because they wanted to maintain that availability of a publicly financed stadium to hold it over their own cities, or potentially move to Baltimore. And of course, as soon as they do that, as soon as you use it, it's like a blackmailer using their weapon. They've given up the information, all they have, and it's out in the public space, and you can't use it anymore. So. Just a really nasty process in terms of that expansion effort.
Yeah, and it hurt all of our fans, right? Because Jacksonville, while we are offering this deal, which was an incredible deal, Jacksonville got a team, Carolina got a team, and it was like, come on, So yeah, just ugly look for sure.
Yeah, they've certainly been two of the really unsuccessful teams in the league that got franchises. One of the things that the Ravens really didn't need is any sort of re-education in that opening game that they had. The last thing I want to hear is more stories about how the Mayflower vans were packed up by a bunch of frat boys who were making $20 an hour. And this kind of, we don't need that. I don't ever want to hear that story again. I don't want to hear how they recruited the people. I don't want to hear they moved off in the middle of the night. I don't want to hear any of that again. I don't need to be reminded again about all the other owners who screwed him over in the expansion process and basically flirted with Baltimore's expansion team to try and get them to make an offer that was exciting. Basically there were just an awful lot of people who let it be known directly that they didn't want Baltimore to have a team. And at the head of that list was Jack Kent Cooke, who, as the Redskins owner, really didn't want a team in Baltimore. Now, Baltimore did not want a Major League Baseball team in Washington. They failed twice there before, basically in competition with the Orioles. Then I consider that as basically those two teams are locked in a death struggle for one market. I don't know how you look at it, Sean.
Same, absolutely the same. I'll find a YouTube video and send it to you later. It was this untalked about rivalry in sports, and it is Baltimore and DC and how all of this goes down. And Jack Kent Cooke at one point in time planned to have the stadium in between Baltimore and DC so that he could capture all of the Baltimore market while Baltimore didn't have the team. And this of course it covers the Masson deal, it covers all of this, but yeah, I mean, truthfully, if you look anywhere else, the market really isn't big enough to sustain both of these. It's our fans that are passionate enough about Baltimore sports that didn't leave to become Redskins Commanders fans that are holding Baltimore in place, and the fans that are Orioles fans that are still holding it down, even though.
You ever have one of those days where everything's off? Well, Mood can help with that. And let me tell you about Mood. It's the online cannabis brand that is changing the way we handle everything, from stress to sleepless nights, with functional gummies that are 100% federally legal cannabis. Mood launched to make cannabis affordable, accessible, and transparent, while at the same time supporting American farmers growing premium hemp on small pesticide-free farms. Their gummies are next level. Seriously, I've tried a few, and each one feels totally different. The Sleepy Time gummies, out like a light, immediately asleep. The Epic Euphoria, it's perfect when you just need a reset to feel good again. What makes them unique? Mood combines THC with herbs and adaptogens, so you get real targeted effects. You're not going to find this in your typical dispensary. And here's the best part. Mood ships discreetly to most states, offers a 100-day satisfaction guarantee, and right now you get 20% off your first order with the promo code RAVEN. Just head to mood.com. Find your perfect gummy and use the code RAVENS at checkout to save 20%.
No, we're not where we wanted to be, that are keeping the team afloat right now, because it'd be so easy to jump to a Washington bandwagon if you really wanted to.
Yeah, it's certainly true. And anyway, we need to remember how we felt going into this weekend is the point I'm making. This will be an unpleasant reminder for Cleveland fans. They have to think about, how and why they lost their team again. Some people who never knew the story before. And I talked to Jake Burns over at Brown's film breakdown, and he said that he was 5 years old at the time, and he doesn't really carry this with him at the same. That's just the same age you are, Sean, right? Because you were 5 when they came here.
Yep.
He doesn't have that sort of memory of it, and now we risk every time we do this that just another generation is gonna maintain this hatred and going on. They did get another team. Of course, that's not something that Cleveland really wants to talk about, getting a team by lawsuit. They certainly do not want to be reminded of the team's futility since then, and the kicker jersey and the quarterback jersey that shows the bajillion guys who played the position in each case and failed at it in Cleveland. They don't want to be reminded of that. It's they shouldn't have to be. They did keep their history, which I thought was a good thing. That's something that Colts, didn't leave in Baltimore, that I've always been very, very indignant about. A lot of their players have not completely turned their back on Indianapolis, but they really maintained their Baltimore roots. And so you'll see the Baltimore Colts are really celebrated out at the Castle, which is at least I think a nice thing.
Yeah, and especially Browns fans, especially now with their stadium deal and all the stuff they're going through right now, this is not a great time to be putting salt into this wound.
Yeah, I didn't get a new update on that. Did they get slowed down again on the move to Brook Park?
I honestly don't know. Last time I read, it was being slowed down, and it's the city is suing, and it's going to be this and it's going to be that, and I'm sure it's the last thing Cleveland, or maybe they do want to be thinking about where the stadium's going to be with Deshaun Watson and all the other stuff going around in Cleveland right now. Maybe they'd rather be thinking about this type of stuff. But either way, it's just not a great time and not a great optics.
Well, the NFL has certainly given them an opportunity to focus their hatred on somebody else, which is really not what the Ravens want, and it's obviously a very bad timing for that to be true. But I think if anything, the Ravens front office is a group that really understands the situation. Ozzie Newsome was around with the organization at the time and has been with the Ravens ever since. Sashi Brown, who's the president of the Ravens, and he'd be the guy. He'd be the guy basically going to the league and saying, "Don't do this, please don't do this." But Sashi Brown is a former Cleveland executive, so a guy who was with it. They understand. Those guys understand. George Kokinis has been at both places as well. I mean, I'm sure there's other people in both front offices who've been around for a good portion of this and have been, with both teams. But Ozzie and Sashi are the two big ones. That Sashi should have been the one to say, "We can't do this. This just is not a reasonable thing to do." And Ozzie, he certainly understands the feelings and could have explained to him any nuance to it that might be needed.
Yeah, it just was not necessary at all. It's such a disservice to the game, the focus, the attention, and I don't know what it's going to be like in the stadium experience, but I'm sure all of the things you mentioned about the college kids and the moving vans and all of that, I'm sure we're going to catch it on TV. I'm
Yeah.
sure we're going to have to listen to it and hear it. I'm sure there's going to be a clip about it, and it's just not. I just want to watch football, man. I just want to watch them hit each other. I just want to watch us bully Cleveland like we normally do.
Yeah, I mean, I want to watch a football game too, and the last thing I do is want to have, the possible of incidents in the stands going on. We're at a relatively dangerous time in our U.S. history with what's going on. Not to get political about this at all, but to have a shooting like has just occurred, that people feel strongly about. Not necessarily everybody, but people do feel strongly about it, and motivation for it is not one that we want to engender. And now, this is setting up a situation that's immediately potentially disruptive is not a good one.
Especially when they're selling beers at $5 a pop.
Yeah, there you go.
It's like you don't need all that,
Are
isn't
they,
it?
are they selling beers at $5 for something for this show or something? Is there?
No, I thought it was their new. I'll look it up while we're talking.
Okay, sure.
But
That's a good price. That's surprisingly good. So anyway, they had been planning this celebration for a long time, by the way. So I'm sure the Ravens, just to give you an idea, when you put together 30 players or however many they're bringing back, and I don't know the exact number, to put together all those players and get them to a specific place on a specific date, get them housing, travel, all that, it's like herding cats. I mean, these guys have moderate to high degrees of interest in coming back. Some of them are doing it for the money. Some of them, I'll do it if it's on that day, but I won't do it if it's on this day, kind of thing. I mean, there's just they have various degrees of interest in doing this at all. And you to get them all on the spot took a lot of planning, no doubt a lot of nudging and negotiation and trying to get folks there. It couldn't be redone. They couldn't just change the date once they knew the schedule. So it really had to be the NFL saying, okay, you're right. We're not going to do that. We'll move that to a different day.
but still so easily done, man. And like, couldn't we have done this against Pittsburgh? Like, there's always,
Perfect.
you don't need a better game. You don't need to point to a better rivalry, a better opportunity. And like, sure, it's Pittsburgh. They're going to finish, 9-7 or whatever, they're going to finish one game above 500 and squeak into the playoffs and not do any damage. But either way, that's still the rivalry. Like, that's still the opportunity to celebrate the Ravens, and the Ravens' history is against Pittsburgh.
Yeah, it's not, that would not be a bad one. Even Pittsburgh fans probably, they don't have the kind of hatred for Baltimore that the Browns do, but I'm not sure I even want that rivalry to be representing the game. But they play the Houston Texans then. I mean, so a team that was not in the league at that time, that'd be a good one.
That's fair.
I guess, we just can conclude with our individual thoughts on this, but I think this was just really poorly thought out by the league. If they thought that somehow the rivalry value was greater than the trouble it was going to cause, and I think the rivalry is good for sports. I think what the Ravens to Steelers have is very good when it's based on the play on the field and there's a background of mutual respect. The Orioles and Yankees have that to a degree. They have a rivalry on the field, at least from the Orioles side. Yankees have this with pretty much every team. But there's a respect for the players and the organization. A lot of people don't like the way they spend to get there, but they know that when you beat the Yankees, you're beating somebody good. You don't want this to be the reason for the rivalry. This is very different. This is just about festering some remaining embers of hatred between these two fan bases it's completely unnecessary. And you don't need to bring back up for Baltimore any more than for Cleveland what happened all those years ago.
If you want to focus on the rivalry, give Cleveland an extra 5 first-round draft picks, and then like maybe it'll be a rivalry and it'll be fair, and like we'll have a game to play.
Okay, I don't like
Sorry.
the I don't like the look down component of this. The Browns have done their best to assemble a good team. They've got a really talented roster now. They happen to miss on their quarterback, and it's really hamstrung the team. But they've got a very talented roster, and they're moving. I think their last draft was their best, but perhaps in their time in Cleveland with getting some good players and moving some draft capital into 26. I think they're going to be a force to be reckoned with, and I don't think they're a group to be looked down on at all. So I just think this is a case where the NFL had two separate franchises which have become victims, and now it's kind of pitting these two victims against each other. It's literally like cockfighting or something that the NFL is participating in to get the Cleveland and Baltimore fan bases riled up against each other.
Yeah, there's just no need for it. You're right.
All right, my friend. Always great talking football with you. Sean, tell folks where they can talk football with you online.
I'm on X at BMORE_Sky, SKY_high, HIGH, be more sky high. Sorry.
All right. Other folks out there. One last thing is going to be moving that we think to a Sunday delivery each week. It's a big hole in the calendar, and it was stacked up against other shows, and so we think we're gonna move to that. And hopefully, look for it Sunday, look for it Monday, and those will be the days where it's most likely to be posted. Thanks again for listening, and we'll talk to you next time on Film Study.